Welcome to the PSAV Hive at MPI. I'm fortunate to have with us Peggy Hemphill, President of Your Corporate Source Incorporated. Peggy, welcome.
Thank you.
Our subject is the future of SMM, what every meeting professional needs to know. Now that's a mouthful.
It is.
So I know you're going to help me simplify that.
Yes.
But most of the folks watching today will certainly be aware of SMM, but where is it as a practice today? How has it evolved?
Well, it started with a travel organization. The Global Business Travel Association determined through procurement that it was time to take a look at meetings and events. They had successfully consolidated travel globally, and the chief procurement officers were looking for another place to save. And they said, travel managers, go after the meetings and events.
So it was imposed from procurement as a starting point.
That's a perfect word, imposed, because it was imposed, and there was a lot of resistance. And the event planners resisted for a long time because they weren't involved in the process.
And how were companies at that point measuring performance in terms of SMM?
Well, they were taking categories of spend, perhaps the cost of the meeting room, the concessions that they could get, the room rates that they were able to negotiate, but they weren't really doing a really fine-tuned analysis of that.
And it really was, if I listen to your description, it's more the mechanics of it, not the content, not the
They had nothing
value.
to do with, yeah,
I mean,
it's not about the content.
At what point then, because we're just taking a little walk down memory lane here, at what
Right.
point did it evolve, or has it starting to evolve to value, where companies start to look at meeting results and outcomes, not just
They're
cost?
really looking at that very recently. For a very long time, procurement was the driver, as I said. And event planners now recognize that it's the train has left the station and it's going to happen, and it doesn't have to be something to be afraid of. And we encourage them not to wait for procurement to knock on your door, to go ahead and take the lead, because it's all about their business and they know what to do. They may need some help getting it underway, and they'll need procurement to work with them, but they should be leading the initiative.
So let's talk a little bit about your corporate source, your
Sure.
company.
Sure.
And what would be a typical engagement, without using obviously any client names, but
Right.
what kind of situation do you find and how do you help?
Well, they're actually not a typical. They're all different, and that's one thing about strategic meetings management, because it's not a cookie cutter thing. We work with everyone from the very beginning. They don't have anything in place and they know they need it, and we start from the beginning and do an assessment of where they are with the data that they have. Take a look at what their model should be, their infrastructure should be, and how to support it either with internal resources, external third-party meeting planning companies, or a hybrid model. Help them find the right technology, go out to RFP on their behalf, because we don't have any financial relationships with any of the providers, so we're able to do that. And then we help them get policies and procedures written up in place, train them, and then we take the training wheels off and they run it on their own successfully. We're not event planners, so we're not there to operate it.
But when you say, and I'm only asking because somebody might want to create an SMM in their own company.
Right.
When you say what their infrastructure should be, is that based on their objectives or their vertical? Or
Well, it's based culturally first.
Okay.
This is a pretty sensitive area of the business. And so culturally, we have to understand where they are and where they want to be. Most of these programs start domestically. The Europeans are beginning to start with some of these programs, but they're not as far along as the U.S. is yet. And it really depends, business requirement-wise, what are you trying to achieve? And let's take a look at where you are today and where you'd like to be, and let us help you develop a financial and operational model that's going to support that.
And the ideal SMM is it top down or bottom up? I mean, is this something that
It is top down.
CEO imposes it and says, we're going to do this?
It is top down. And so many people, and in fact, when those of us who've been doing this a long time started, it was a grassroots movement and it was bottom up. It was coming down to us from the top to do it, but they were not giving any support. They just said, this is what you need to do, make it happen. But they weren't giving the endorsement that's
Right.
critical. So it absolutely has to have executive sponsorship to be successful.
And do you sense, because you said there, let's use your number, 5%. That means
Okay.
95% of enterprises and businesses who should be doing it
Yeah.
aren't.
Yeah.
And for every one of those companies, there's somebody who's got the responsibility for corporate travel and meetings and putting up with all the territorial issues. And what should they do? How do you start a program in your company? Where should they turn? I mean, to you, of course, but
Yeah, that would be nice.
that would be nice, yeah.
Well, they've got to really understand completely the value of it. And if it's left in the hands of the event planner who is already overtaxed with getting the events, or if it's left in the hands of the travel manager who has no event planning background and doesn't understand the business, the chances are that it's not going to go very far, because it really is something that needs someone dedicated. It needs a dedicated team to get you through the process, basically. And if you can take some of those people out and have representatives from all the business disciplines, legal, risk management, HR, compliance, and all the departments, finance, that are affected by this, and you can actually pull together a team that can get someone else to do their work for a while, then potentially they can make it happen. But back to the territorial thing, it's pretty difficult. And for us to have even started the company, it was all about the fact that I had used a consultant in 2 big Fortune 500 companies. I was lucky enough to work for someone who recognized that with everything else I had to do, we needed to do this, but it was going to take somebody from the outside for a short period of time to get it up and running. And so that he was kind of my mentor.
Is this true internationally now? You had mentioned, is it starting to move?
It is definitely moving internationally. What we see over there is really the early stages of it. And for MPI in Montreux in January, we had an SMM session over there that we found from the feedback was a little bit higher level than they were ready for, because they said, we need the basics first. We're just not there yet. And we even had a little bit of that at our session yesterday, and it's because this really started, again, with the Travel Management Association, and MPI has really just started to get involved in it, and the event planners are open to it now. So we are realizing that not only in Europe, but in many cases, the event planners here are still trying to find out what the basics are.
Well, we can see what's in it for the company, a lot, from a legal cost, everything. What about the vendors, the suppliers who are working with the companies? Do they benefit in some way? I mean,
It's a dream for them. It's all about market share and gaining more market share for them. And if they have 12 planners or 50 planners in a company and they're not able to get to all of those people, they know one.
right.
They know one or two, and they've got their business, but they want the business of all 50, wouldn't you? Yeah. So it's a dream for them. But not only that, the negotiating of the contracts from people who clearly are professionally doing it and those who really don't even know what to ask, it just makes their lives a lot easier. And a perfect example of that is how the electronic RFPs go out now to the hotels and the venues. And you have planners, inexperienced planners, who send out hundreds of RFPs. And it's just a mountain of RFPs for the hotels to respond to. And in many cases, they are
Just fishing expedition.
Yes, it's just a perfect example. Yeah, perfect term. And so it's a big waste of the hotel's time. So they are very excited when they recognize that the company has stopped talking about doing this and really doing it. And it's analogous to the way the travel was, because travel for a long time didn't have many policies in place. You picked up the phone, you called, and you made your reservation, you had your agent you liked to talk to. There weren't really any policies in place. And yet, when they started pulling that together, the suppliers realized this is going to be a benefit for us. If they've got a policy, yes, we're willing to talk to them about better deals. So yeah, they love it.
And RFPs as well, I guess, the language of RFPs and the way,
Right.
the terms and what's expected of potential prospective suppliers that would be better. I mean,
Right.
I'm now given reasonable conditions and clear direction.
Yes, and we had someone said in the session yesterday, an inexperienced planner sent in 73 custom questions on an RFP.
Oh,
You know,
right.
so it's just a
So-
better way of doing business for both sides.
The vendors will be happier.
Right.
Companies will win. Everybody's winning, but we're still only at 5%. Is it just a matter of overcoming these territorial obstructions or getting the message out? Is it
Well, it's been under the radar for a long time.
right?
So if you think about who should be interested in this, if you could get their attention, the CFO, the CEO, the CPO, the CMO, all they have very full plates. And if someone is not able to go to them and sit down with them and have a seat at the table and communicate with them in a way that they receive information,
Right.
it's very hard to get that point across.
So, Peggy, just to kind of wrap up,
Sure.
as you look to the future, I hope optimistically, as the SMM rolls out, what is there something encouraging to you about what's going on now with SMM that gives you hope for the future?
Oh, I'm very encouraged because I do see the shift from the travel organizations to the meeting organizations. And in the beginning, we were only working with procurement and travel. The meetings department, they weren't even interested in talking about it at all. And it has clearly shifted, and we're very fortunate to have Cindy Deoust as the Chief Operating Officer of MPI because she is as passionate about SMM as any of us. And so now, and I'm sure you're aware that there is an alliance between GBTA and MPI. And so it's really shifted so that the event planners, as they should be, can lead these, rely on procurement to help them, and rely on the other departments that are affected to help them. But they should lead this into the future, and all of them won't be ready for that. You'll see some that want to stay with logistics, but our goal is to see them move if they are interested in that and have the skill set from logistics to leadership.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. We've been speaking with Peggy Hemphill, the president of Your Corporate Source Incorporated. The subject was the future of SMM, what every meeting professional needs to know. Please come back and visit us at the Hive soon.